We are live, and we did a quick Balaji walkthrough, Balaji tweet walkthrough. We'll just look at some of his interesting tweets last time, and it was a very quick one. But let's now go deeper. The only connection you need is an internet connection. That's very cool. We looked into this one, the Zillow effect. That was amazing. National debt, the worst case in history revoked the human right to exit the Soviets, the Nazis, the East Germans, the Cubans, the North Koreans. They did not let you leave. The measure was designed to combat the brain drain caused by the growing emigration of Soviet Jews and other members of the intelligentsia to the West. The accompanying instruction set issued the same day set the fee to 12,000 rubles. This is also an interesting podcast. Maybe we'll come back to this. You can bookmark. Why is everything so expensive? The senior engineer needs only one prompt, the junior engineer needs multiple prompts. We looked into that. We looked into this one. The new bottleneck of on AI is prompting and verifying, since AI does tasks middle to middle, not end to end. So business spend migrates towards the edges of prompting and verifying, even as AI speeds up the middle. AI doesn't take a job; it takes the job of the previous AI. This is interesting, obviously, because with every upgrade of model, you are just like, okay, let's get the new model because you've already identified what the LLM is supposed to do, what task it is supposed to do, and now if there's a better model, you are like, okay, upgrade. Killer AI is already here. It's called drones. Decentralized AI is already here. It's essentially polytheistic AI rather than monotheistic. AI is probabilistic while crypto is deterministic. It can solve some equations without cryptographic equations. Crypto is roughly what AI can do. Cryptocurrency partially protects you from debanking. Crypto identity partially protects you from denaturalization. Thank you to everyone. I met during the incredible multi-network school, super team, SG. Brought me here there for the Ignition program, basically opened a whole new world of founders and builders by shipping real things in crypto. Amazing, super team. Apology. Okay, who's that? Michael. Praxis Citizen. Phoenician. Betting my life on five things: Tesla, Bitcoin, AI agents, actuators, and network states. Your friendly reply guy. If biology has taught me anything, it is to never look at the current state of affairs. Look at the trend line instead. That is more important and will tell you where to go and where the alpha will be. India is, of course, still a poor country, but it's improving every day. Sorry to say that Blue America is headed in the opposite direction. Blue America. The current price of an apple is everything because you are buying it to eat today. But the current price of Apple stock is nothing because you are buying it based on its future value tomorrow. Investment operates on completely different rules, and consumption yesterday and today are only interesting insofar as they offer clues about tomorrow. Hmm, interesting. Comparing Apple with Apple. You can't stay and fight a sovereign debt crisis. It's like fighting a volcano. You can get a first mover advantage by exiting to Bitcoin. Smart money is already getting out of the blast radius. Getting out of the blast radius. Smart money is already getting out of the blast radius. Wow. The original Grok drive stat of 11% in the quote tweet seems to come from the same source. So if you disbelieve the straight line, you also disbelieve the original source. But if you want another source, use the Nature paper on switch part over the decades. India is still a poor country with a map shows it embarked on a nationwide and largely successful public sanitation campaign. This is very interesting. I feel the way it's like the way Balaji is, he's smart, he is Indian, he understood the entire West. He basically studied at MIT, Stanford, and he worked in the biggest tech companies. He worked in at A16Z as well as a partner. And it's very interesting. Like after doing all of that work, if he is now exiting America, if he's now a big proponent of India, it's very interesting. We can see a future where Balaji is kind of like, I don't know, crazy prediction, but maybe India needs Balaji as the prime minister. I have a crazy idea. Let's have government protect property rights and allow capitalism, no crony capitalism with the many regulations. I mean, the laissez-faire, laissez-faire, deep type. Then we can see whether people of different races and cultures can work together peacefully. That's why blockchain is common law, only scaled to Brits. The Constitution only scaled to America, but cryptocurrency scales to everyone. Everyone gets access to provably fair monetary policy, contracts, identity, property rights. We are all equal on the internet. It's one of the reasons the future is China versus the internet. China is the land power, where the state is above the law. The internet is the cloud power, where the law is above the state. Code-based order takes over, where the rules-based order ends. Great protocol politics. 21st century doesn't belong to China, the United States, or Silicon Valley. It belongs to the internet. You can argue we're all equal on the internet. You can argue it boils down to the judges. We didn't automate the executive as founders still exist. We didn't automate the legislative as ingenious still exists too. But we automated judiciary because you can't easily accuse an open source blockchain of bias. It is a provably fair judge. Common law only scaled to Brits, the Constitution only scaled to America, but the cryptocurrency scales to everyone. Everyone gets access to provably fair monetary policy, contracts, identity, property rights for all equal on the internet. India counted 640 million votes in one day. California is still counting votes. Star base, yes. Reclaiming democracy. I disagree with the idea that democracy must limit economic growth. Moreover, I think we actually need to. Also, this just reminds me, I read about a very interesting thing, a very interesting video that one of my friends shared, and he was comparing the culture of Canada versus US. In US, you have a lot of inequality, and I think so. Let's see. The first example he gives is like Italy versus Switzerland. So in Italy, there was a lot of inequality. There was a lot of theft, a lot of hunger, a lot of bad stuff happening. But at the same time, you had Michelangelo, you had Da Vinci, and you had other amazing artists from the Renaissance period. On the other hand, you have Switzerland, or you had Switzerland, where you had a lot of prosperity, a lot of happiness. Everything was amazing. What did you get? You got the cuckoo clock. So this was kind of I don't know where is this excerpt from, but he picked up this thing. And then he compares that with Canada versus US, that in Canada you don't have to do anything, but you will be respected, you will be treated fairly, and yeah, you there's a lot of equality in terms of respect, in terms of visibility. But on the other hand, in America, there's a lot of inequality, and that is what. So, so the concept is that the most ambitious in Canada will immigrate to US because they are looking for those rewards, those extreme rewards. And in Canada, by giving respect to everyone, it's like handing out participation trophies. But in US, the people who work the hardest and who are the most driven, they get rewarded. So this was a very interesting Interesting comparison that was being made. But reclaiming democracy. I disagree with the idea that democracy must limit economic growth. Moreover, I think we actually need to reclaim democracy just as we reclaim free speech, because above all, democracy means the consent of the governed. Democracy means the consent of the governed. But let me first defend democracy's economic track record first. Democratic India posted the highest economic growth rate in the world over the last 10 years, proving that democracy need not hold back an economy. India is now arguably better at democracy than many other Western jurisdictions, as 500 million votes were counted in one day. That shows democracy is feasible even at billion-person scale in the modern age. Perhaps obviously democratic America was the richest and most successful country in the world. It was able to build for 200 plus years, in part because it combined democracy with capitalism and the frontier spirit. Fourth, as another example of how democracy can actually catalyze economic growth, the democratic vote in the late USSR publicly repudiated the Soviet far left and led to the economic growth of Eastern Europe and the Baltics. What can happen economically when we lack democracy? Well, in California, once the Blues succeeded in destroying democracy and turning it into one party state where the party always won, the looting of the public through proof truly began in earnest. The abolition of competitive multi-party elections after 2010 is why Californians got $100 billion non-existent trains. Hmm. Sixth, even in those contexts where the voting is more with feet than ballot, the essential principle of consent is preserved. For example, tech companies do have CEOs, and so there is top-down leadership, but they also have bottom-up consent. As every single person who's there has consented to be there and can leave at any time. This consent is what drives the performance of tech. Seven, the recent 97% plus vote in Starbase shows that we can manifest this type of consent in the physical world as an official vote. Starbase. Starbase is a really good, again, example for Balaji, right? Because Starbase, actually, let's look at this. Super Grok. Whoa, it's a Super Grok now. Let's see. How did Starbase become a city? It's the Super Grok. Wow. All right. Initiative by SpaceX driven by its operations and the vision of CEO Elon Musk to create a community centered around its South Texas launch site. SpaceX began eyeing Boca Chica, potential private launch site 2011. 2014, company announced it would build its South Texas launch facility there, with soil work starting in 2015 and major construction in 2018. The area, then known as Boca Chica Village or Coppernic Shores, was sparsely populated with only few residents. Buying properties in 2012 gradually transformed the area into a hub for its Starship program, Starbase concept. Next, create a city called Starbase encompassing Boca Chica Village, the SpaceX launch and test site surrounding areas. Initially, a casual inquiry with Cameron County after Audit Corporation, Signal Spaces intend to formalize the area as a municipality. The name municipality. The name Starbase became Starbase widely used for the SpaceX facilities by 2022. Petition election. File an official petition with Cameron County to incorporate Starbase as a Type C municipality covering about 1.5 square miles. Order an election for May 3rd, 25 after verifying the petition's compliance with Texas law. Of the 283 eligible voters, mostly SpaceX employees or their families, 212 voted in favor of incorporation, with only 6 against, and 97.7% approval rate. The election also selected Bobby Pedden, SpaceX VP, as mayor, and 2 SpaceX affiliated commissioners, all running unopposed. Formal incorporation, May 20. Formally incorporated as Type C General Law City with Commission form of government. The status grants the city authority over local issues like planning, taxation, up to 1.5% property tax, infrastructure. SpaceX facilities employ housing and some vacant land for future expansion, with plans for amenities like a school at Astra Community Center and commercial spaces. Streamline operations by managing utilities, roads, and services like schooling and medical care, where it was already providing which it was already providing. Incorporation also potentially allows them to control beach and highway closures during launches, though a proposed Texas bill to grant this authority free in 25. Gateway to Mars supporting the Starship program's goal of lunar and Martian missions. Really cool, really cool. A quick water break. All right. Like crony capitalism is a good reason to implement communism. Pseudo democratic corruption isn't a good reason to implement dictatorship. Basically, I do understand the right's critique of democracy just as I understand the left's critique of capitalism, but at the end of the day, one must earn legitimacy through consensual votes, as one builds wealth through mutually beneficial transactions. Otherwise, the right wing anti democrat is just the inverse of the left wing anti capitalist. You need the consent of free people freely given to build something truly great, and that's what democracy really represents, the consent of the governed. Anyway, I more about this, but we should reclaim democracy as we reclaim free speech by strengthening it for the internet age, because the alternative democratic capitalism is, I believe, free. Let's look at this. This is the Marina Bay. What's India's potential? Well, Singapore previewed what China could look like, and Dubai may preview what India could look like because Indians are 38% of Dubai's population, while South Asians are more than 50%. And by working with Emiratis, they build a city that looks like this. Dubai shatters many preconceptions. It shows Hindus and Muslims working together. Middle East need not be fundamentalists. South Asians can build clean cities, and it's more desirable for many Brits than the UK. Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Emirati. It's interesting because other commenters said the exact opposite, that the Indians coming to Dubai are only blue collar workers. In reality, Indians in Dubai now span all social classes. So actually pulling a small minority of wealthy individuals out of a dirt poor or corrupt country with 1.4 billion people does not give you an accurate representation of the future of a country. In Singapore, they still generally view mainlanders as less, even with genetic ties. But that is true. In the way they span all social classes. Capital moving to Dubai, Singapore, Australia, talent will follow. Whoa. Millionaires entering, millionaires leaving. UK, China, India, Russia, Nigeria, Brazil, South America, Vietnam. So you want to be in these hotspots: Canada, USA, Singapore, Australia. Capital mig- capital migration will be an interesting phenomenon to observe in the coming decades. The rich are leaving declining nations and creating hubs elsewhere. I guess limited by foundry, A is limited by prompters. Our pitch video is better than pitch decks. I'm judging a hackathon now with Coinbase, where every pitch is a video. The founders build companies on base while a network school is kind of a Shark Tank-ish thing, but remote stream here. Why is he putting? It always one decks, but AI has made video editing so much easier than that a demo video alongside the deck will become standard. By the way, this stream with yeah. AI doesn't do an end-to-end, it does middle-to-middle. The new bottlenecks are prompting and verifying. Prompting and verifying. AI will create many jobs in the broad area of verifying AI. Proof of human, proof of authenticity, proof of output is not AI. Proof of output is actually right. AI prompting to AI verifying. Prompting scales because prompting is just typing, but AI verifying doesn't scale because verifying AI output involves much more than just typing. Sometimes you can verify by eye, which is why AI is great for front-end images and video. But for anything subtle, you need to read the code or text deeply, and that means knowing the topic well enough to correct the AI. Researchers are well aware of this, which is why there's so much work on evals and hallucination. However, the concept of verification as a bottleneck for AI users is under discussed. You can try formal verification or critic models, where one AI checks another or other techniques, but to even be aware of the issues as a first-class problem is half the battle. AI verifying is as important as AI prompting. This is a great one-liner by Chamath that matches my experience. The senior engineer is the goalie. They catch what AI missed. Hmm. Reminds me of calling me Chamath that in the past, QA team members were the lower level IT staff. With AI, QA will be the elite IT staff. It will complete the migration London to Dubai, Tokyo to Singapore, New York to Miami, the new capitals of capital. New York Stock Exchange and every major hedge fund moves to Florida within the next 4 years. Crime will skyrocket. The people who created wealth in investment will flee. His socialist policies and many jobs will leave to total disaster. London pushed 20 250,000 Brits to Dubai, China drove thousands of Chinese expats to Singapore. Now, New York may push countless financiers to Miami, accelerating the pre existing trend of leaving New York, Florida. On the one hand, he is capable of performing superhuman work. On the other hand, he is becoming a synonym for fake. This is another example of how the internet increases variance. He is the best researcher and the worst spammer at the same time. Best researcher and the worst spammer at the same time. The internet increases variance. The internet is increasing variance from 30-minute sitcoms to 30-second clips and 30 episode Netflix binges. From stable 9 to 5 job to a gig economy task or a crypto windfall. From a standard life script to 30-year-olds living with their parents and 20-year-old startup CEOs. It's kind of crazy. From a stable 9 to 5 job to a gig economy task or crypto windfall. From a standard life script to 30-year-olds living with their parents and 20-year-old startup CEOs. Wow. The underlying dynamic is that the internet connects people peer to peer, thereby removing all previous limits. The highs are higher and the lows are lower. The internet disintermediation removes middlemen, no moderation, no moderation, no limits. This is crazy line from a standard life script to 30-year-olds living with their parents and 20-year-old startup CEOs. Wow. Wow. You also see how much this is just a factor of the culture, right? Like it's not about, you know, I don't think it's about it's the problem of the 30-year-olds. It's the problem that they got stuck with what the culture was. But maybe they should have just moved to SF and life would have been different. But okay. Talked to CK with Balaji and was impressed by the questions from the audience. People living here are smart and passionate. Everything feels intentional, but also organic and bottom up. Inspiring experiment, community bootstrapping and design is all the right ingredients to succeed, and the world needs dozens of these ASAP. This is really cool. Akrit, building AI for India. Incredible meeting Balaji and seeing what he's doing with network school. Reimagination of cities and communities, and today we got to experience one such training. More power to you. This is the perception, also reality. America is. I, feel, I don't know why I find ns.com weird. I feel like it feels like a big flex that, oh, I have a two-letter domain name, but I think networkschool.com would have been much better. No. Pratyush Chaudhary. Hey, I know Pratish Chaudhary. Okay. Enabling Moria in India. The world needs a reimagination of cities and communities, and today we got to experience one such feeling. More power to you. A safe haven family home in LA is gone because our state leaders are incompetent and all, and I have to still pay property tax and mortgage on a dirt lot. There's something that really should be written about more. If your house catches fire due to the city's inability to extinguish fires, you really still need to pay LA for the property they they just negligently destroyed. Other jurisdiction must have saner policies. Americans' perception of the best long-term investment. Real estate is highest, gold, stocks, mutual. Oh, it's dropping. Okay. What is rising? What is rising? Only blue is rising. Gold is rising. I'm hearing that gold is rising. My view. Bitcoin more than gold. Public stocks, real estate, savings, CDs, bonds. At the end of a sovereign debt cycle, safe investments are unsafe. Bitcoin, public stocks. Under normal circumstances, I would agree, but Western countries face sovereign debt crisis, and that means those states may not protect real estate. For example, NY favors squatters. CA can't stop fires, and the UK is taxing farms. So land may be unsafe in an unsafe land. Real estate is a good example. On one hand, it includes people who own some awful timeshare in Tulsa, a mall in a blighted Rust Belt town or whatever. It was obviously a terrible investment compared to strong school, etc. But if you are British noble who still owns 10,000 acres of prime farmland, that probably is a better investment than stocks or crypto. Even if the nominal capital gains for the other option is higher, as it produces income while giving you a bit power, not attendant to more ethereal assets. Those states may not protect real estate. China has different dynamics. Chinese bond yields are falling and just flip Japan. Japan is the emerging market now. More precisely, Japan is descending world and China is ascending world, whether you like it or not. Real estate feels like it has to hit a wall. Housing can either be affordable or a good investment. America chose the latter for the last 40 years, but it can go up forever. What's interesting is that in 2011, right after the financial crisis, the public was bullish on gold and bearish on real estate. But all the Fed purchases of mortgage-backed securities made them forget that real estate wasn't safe, even as billions piled into digital gold. 50% of Australians now think China will be ahead of US tech by 2035. Quite concerning. 50% of Australians now think China will be ahead of US. Hmm. The public perception of technological edge correlates with the perception of military advantage. So Australia's medium-term position as a US military ally may be in question in terms of both the Quad and AUKUS. AUKUS, if the Livonian persists. Okay, this is getting into Australian politics. We don't even know what's happening over there. We can date it back to 2008. The internet went vertical and radicalized Blue America into wokeness and techlash. 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 Meanwhile, China went vertical and drove Red America to elect Trump for trade war. The attention is mostly on red versus blue, but blue versus internet and red versus China were crucial theaters of conflicts. These conflicts continue, so we should expect more visceral antipathy from Blue America towards the internet and more heartfelt distaste from Red America towards China. For example, Blue versus Internet manifests are less adoption of AI among consumers. City that happened right in my neighborhood in Brazil. 70% of transactions happen on base. Most volume came from USDC. Most transactions used BRZ, local stable coin from Brazil. Great job, your base. Balaji must be proud. So Balaji must be proud. And Balaji is like retweeting. He's like, I am proud. I am proud. And to the right, total stablecoin supply. Genius Act passes the Senate 68 to 30. A huge moment for stablecoins in the new global economy. We're all building together. A new day one. We need to look into this. What is the Genius Act for stablecoins? We'll come back to it later. The first 100 billion is the hardest. The first billion is a hell of a lot harder. The first million is the hardest. If you're in Singapore for Super, I'm giving keynote tomorrow morning. The topic is automating the state and returning power to the people. AI can handle much of the drudgery that burdens us, freeing up time to go outdoors and enjoy being human. Let's talk about how. Hmm. Here's a fun little clip with me and Peter, co-founder of Super AI. The conference is already sold out. All right, Shopifying. Enable USDC, check out why Shopify payments and Shopee early access starts today roll out throughout the year. We think that stablecoins are a natural way to transact on the internet and worked with Coinbase to develop the commerce payment protocol smart contract that powers this work. We need Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and Base. We need USDC and USDT, and we also needed to win politically. And now all the infrastructure is there, and we finally have internet first payments. Gold is now the second most important reserve asset for central banks. Gold has flipped the euro. It's now the second number two reserve asset worldwide. Crazy. Gold has touched all-time highs. BRICS is stacking gold bricks, and USG is now below 50%. Gold is the past, the reserve currency of the land, and digital gold is the future. It's the reserve currency of the cloud. Both stand arrayed against the present age of fiat. The new US administration has recently taken initiatives to support the global use of cryptocurrency. These initiatives include the creation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve using 17 billion Bitcoin seized by the US Treasury in forfeiting proceedings, while other crypto assets owned by the US government would be pooled to make a digital assets stockpile. Some initiatives aim to boost innovation, facilitate the issuance and use of US dollar-based stablecoins, which accounted for around 99% of capitalization of the stablecoin market of approximately 180 billion at the end of 2024. These developments may have implications for capital flows if they lead to shifts in demand for international reserve assets and for global financials. Most of the violence in the 20th century was actually not on the basis of race, it was on the basis of class. Many formerly civilized places succumbed to a madness where they killed their most successful citizens out of murderous envy. The Soviets liquidated the kulaks, the Maoists killed farmers and took their land, and Pol Pot shot everyone with glasses. Well, we can and should make more short films about what actually happened in communism. I wanted to do this for years, but now the tooling is available. Hollywood's missing movies. Hollywood's missing movies. Wow. Okay. The Black Book of Communism, Crime, Shame, Repression. So it's like taking these very interesting concepts and making movies out of it because earlier this wasn't possible, but now you can. Now you can. Here's another reframe. AI doesn't take your job, AI takes the job of the previous AI. For example, Midjourney took the job of Stable Diffusion. Cloud Code is competing for the job of OpenAI Codex. Because once you know how to prompt an AI model in a given domain, once it's really part of your workflow, it's easy to swap in a new one. You're always employing an AI image model, an AI code model, an AI video model, and so on. You essentially have budget for AI contractors in each vertical. You're constantly upgrading to the best new model. Endowments face liquidity crunch amid market pullback funding cuts. Endowments are largely illiquid. The federal funds crunch has prompted Howard and Yale to start borrowing with bonds and selling their stakes. The federal funds crunch has prompted Howard and Yale to start borrowing with bonds and selling their stakes. The long-term outcome is the end of the US university system as we know it. The depression levels are high, and labs are suffering from lack of funding. Nobel Prize winners not safe, or the schools really not going to backstop this with their billions. Wow. Universities create this problem with the administrative bloat that led to 50-60% of every federal research dollar going to overhead. EU is 20%. Private research funding is usually capped at 10 to 20%. How was liquidity play? 1 billion private equity secondary sale facilitated by Jefferies Lexington Partners underscores a desperate bid for cash. The university faces a dual crisis: federal funding freezes and an endowment structure overly reliant on illiquid assets. 83% of its 53.2 billion endowment allocated to private equity and hedge funds compared to just 14% in public equities. The school risks being trapped in liquidity crunch. The Trump administration's decision to freeze 2.2 billion in research grants and label Harvard a political entity has exacerbated cash flow concerns. To bridge the gap, Harvard issued 1.2 billion in municipal bonds, but the bigger move is a shift from long-term holdings to secondary sales. Wow. Despite the waiver, well, they have a cash crunch. They are offloading stakes and issuing bonds because they need to replace billions in federal funding. El Salvador regrets that a bloc which is aging, overregulated, energy dependent, tech lagging, and led by unelected bureaucrats still insist on lecturing the rest of the world. El Salvador. EU regrets the adoption. EU regrets the adoption of the Foreign Agents Law, which risk restricting civil society and runs counter to international obligations. Recent arrest of human rights defenders raise further concerns. Zoom out. El Salvador was not part of the global conversation 5 years ago. Now, EU bureaucrats feel compelled to hold it back. But the simple fact that they are trying is an endorsement of what Bukele has built. There would be no lecture if El Salvador wasn't rising. Opt out. Wow, what is this? What is this animal? Slaughterback. Politics does not work. Buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the honey badger of money. The honey badger of money. The empire, long divided, must unite. Long united, must divide. Thus has it always been. Three kingdoms of China. Division of Roman Empire. Carolingian Empire after the Treaty of Verdun, Burgundy. Aquitaine. Gascony, Navarre, Spanish March. Septimania. Francia. Brittany. English Kingdom. Wales. Franconia, Swabia, Bavaria, Kingdom of Italy. Saxony. Famous opening line of Romance of the Three Kingdoms by Luo Guangzhong describes the events all the way back in 220 to 280 AD, was written 1522, recurring historical patterns. No fractured empire has ever reunited except for China. China has done it multiple times. While continental Europe has broken up and reunified several times, or at least large swaths of it. Roman Empire, Charlemagne, Holy Roman Empire, Napoleonic Empire, Western and Soviet blocs, European Union. If California breaks away, it could be a huge win-win. National Republicans no longer have to deal with Californians voting for electoral votes, and California Democrats no longer have to deal with Republicans. Everyone gets what they want: a blue state run by and for blues. Large-scale cancellation of federal funding for California. pay the bills for the federal government. We pay over 80 billion more in taxes than we get back. Maybe it's time to cut that off. Big props to Jeremy Allaire. Circle USDC come a long way since we set up the center in 2018. Stablecoins are now bigger than Visa. And give me a second. I'm working, but you can clean up. Up in like 15 minutes. Thank you. Okay. We had big props to Jeremy Allaire and Circle. USDC's come a long way since we set up center in 2018. Stable coins now bigger than Visa, and with every tech company adopting them, we will finally get internet first rails. This is due in large part to their decade of work. Sean Neville, proud day, Circle co-founder and board director, seeing our IPO come to fruition. 20 years ago, Jeremy Allaire and I advised Circle over his kitchen table. 8 years ago, we built USDC with a tiny team. So many talented, tireless people have played crucial roles growing USDC and getting Circle to mainstream public market validation. I'm humble and grateful for you all, grateful for today and all those who made it happen. And as this milestone accelerates what we are building at both Circle and Catena Labs, I'm even more excited for what's next. Congrats, Sean. Sean Neville, co-founder, Catena Labs. Online success 10 years in the making. Congrats to Sean Duffy and Omara team on their IPO. Omara was one of the first insider investors. They grinded it out for a decade, well deserved. Software gets the world to stop overeating. Oh, I don't know what that means. Sean Duffy, Omara Health. Omara Health. Live healthier, feel better. Omara's virtual care program that gives you personalized support to get to a healthier you. Okay, okay. Prediction markets are officially mainstream. 20% of the market has an official prediction market. Partner prediction markets are officially mainstream, and this means X could add crypto support. Proud to be in the seed round, backing Shane Coplan all the way back in 2020. Important technology for the world. The dollar has, I know Balaji is cooking a 10K word essay on government spending and Bitcoin right now. The dollar is already devalued by against Bitcoin since inception from zero point 0.1 cents per BTC to 100K per BTC in just 16 years. However, the next 10x will be different. You should choose a jurisdiction that respects property rights and has not abolished the police. There's a lot of discussion from people like Balaji about building special cities that are free from regulation. Good idea, but all of America used to be like this: low taxes, low regulation, high wages, high productivity. Low taxes, low regulation, high wages, high productivity. The entire country used to be a special economic zone like Dubai or Shenzhen. GE used to manufacture heavy industrial machinery in downtown Manhattan. That's what American freedom used to mean. What if we had such a large and powerful economy that everybody wanted access to that we could raise all the revenues we need from tariffs? Minimum necessary legal innovation. Minimum necessary legal innovation. First, just to clarify, new cities should not be free of regulation. They should inherit the existing legal code and just make a few very careful, thought through changes. For example, perhaps You set up a self-driving zone where all cars must be self-driving cars, but otherwise you keep the existing legal code. Just that one change, all cars self-driving will have so many ripple effects that it will lead to a totally different physical environment and all kinds of new businesses setting up there. But you don't need to change the laws on, say, littering. Laws tends to reflect balances arrived at over decades or even centuries, and you don't need to do everything de novo. It's not small thing like also yes, America used to be a better place to build, but to fix it, you can't fix the whole thing at once. You have to pick one small patch and fix it first. And scale up your success from there, just like a tech startup. It's easy to say and extremely hard to do, which is why people fight at the federal level for one quick switch to flip. But you can get back to the economy and demographics of 945 with 45% tariffs. It just doesn't work like that. There is no quick fix. You have to prove and expand frontier cities. Another point is that frontier cities aren't really the same as special cities, not a nitpick, but the term special city implies that it's somehow better than all the other cities. In reality, a frontier city will often be worse than existing cities on most dimensions. The key dimension of permitting new innovation. For example, the hypothetical self-driving car city. In the first example will likely lack the beagles of New York or the beaches of Miami and so on. Only be better for those who want to build a self-driving city as a model for the world, and also it won't start out as a city at all. It will look more like a town, maybe a few streets and sensual cities. One other point I would make is that service is a better model than designing some existing location to be startup city. If you do it from scratch in some previously god forsaken area like Starbase, there is both much less resistance and much higher levels of consent. Every single person who's in Starbase has to first start voted in with their feet, their wallet, and their ballot to build a new city. It's all about the consent of the governed. That's how you reclaim democracy, like reclaiming free speech. This kind of opting into new experiments is actually also part of the US tradition, namely the laboratory of the states. Anyway, just some practical points to keep in mind, also useful for building new communities and law outside the US, of course. I spent more time verifying AI output than prompting. I find ChatGPT is solid for brainstorming, but for code, you need to have some experiences in the language to be able to verify its output. Did you know suing US journalists for from the appropriate foreign jurisdiction means they are much more likely to lose? It's true. Atlantic had to publish 16 corrections to a single article to avoid getting hit with a default judgment in Japan. Settlement in Japanese court ends embarrassing episode for the Atlantic. Of course, you must have standing in the jurisdiction of the journal must be aligned, but these requirements are easily met in many cases, particularly the latter. By my count there, that 16 post-publication changes covering easy to check facts, matters of taste and privacy subjects, medical condition, repertorial blocking and tackling, including denials, context, and run enough material to keep a college journalism class going for a few weeks. Jason. Jason just visited Singapore Network School, did a new podcast together coming soon. Oh, tech fixes things. It's pretty and pretty. Perfect place for founders to camp out and find product market fit with other founders. Predict he's going to have 1,000 folks living here in 30 months. Hmm. Let's look into the Singapore Johor Special Economic Zone New Havens. I will inform you that the journals are in it again, and they threaten our vendors. Of course, it didn't work because the power has fallen off a cliff by a journal writer anyway, and I thought you should know about it. However, before we get into that, let me give you some context. I, along with others, other people around the world, am now building strong societies outside blue control. Why? I can explain with one picture. This is what blue governance looks like. Five minutes away from where I once lived. Rampaging mob, hundreds of criminals lit stolen cars on fire for hours, and the police did nothing. The reason they did nothing is because Democrats like the da 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 have abolished the police. Scenes like this are now common in Blue America. You can be stabbed on the street, set on fire, pushed in front of a train, or shot in the back, and it's just a commonplace occurrence. Indeed, if you bring this up, some will call you soft. They will say the toxic suit of burning cars, the pieces, the syringes, the violent drug addicts, the filthy streets, the random assaults, the constant stress, and all the health consequences that come with that. That's just life in a big Democrat city. You just have to accept that trade-off. Okay, but suppose we chose a different trade-off. Suppose we instead move to an uninhabited location thousands of miles away to fix it up and make it our own with our own peaceful net community. Suppose we use the internet to reopen a fractal frontier with pockets of freedom all around the world. Well, then some Democrats will attack you for opting out because they fear anyone exiting their control. And that brings me to the present day. The journal that failed. As I mentioned, we are building a soft society in Southeast Asia, literally as far away from Blue America as is possible on the surface of Earth. Nevertheless, several months ago, a Democrat journal named Ali was paid by the Democrat oligarch to write a hit piece on us. Isn't Lauren Powell Jobs? She's wife of Steve Jobs. Supergra. Go. Go, 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 go. Le plus intelligent. Go. What's up? I don't want anyone to entertain the idea of life outside blue control. Normal ammo is to accuse everyone from Elon to Telegram of secret bigotry, but he can easily do that to another brown guy like me. So instead, he set on spreading rumors about the facility being secretly unhealthy. Unfortunately for him, our members, no journalists, are evil, so they told us what he was doing, and so we blew up his fake story on the tarmac with a professional opinion from a top Singapore licensed firm who maintains the facilities of everyone from Amazon to Netflix to Singapore's Ministry of Health itself. You can read the full details here. Now he had a problem because he had invested literally months of his life in a story he saw vaporized before his eyes. You see the way journalists write his stories like Mad Libs. It all started when Derrida promised to change the way we did it up forever. Aim with Derrida in capital, everything seemed perfect in Derrida, but then came the Slack message on Derrida. Founder name made an offhand joke about a completely normal thing, accidentally offending a marginalized employee. A screenshot of the post went viral, sparking outrage among easily offended people and prompting our investigative team here at media to look deeper. What we found was concerning. We found an expert who's also a Democrat to say what we wanted to say about the troubling history of such comments. They pre-write who the villain is, namely you, and who the hero is, all this time, and then they find other Democrats because their sources are also all Democrats to quote. But Ali wasn't getting the quote he wanted, so he decided to force the issue, and that's when he made the fateful decision to threaten our vendor. The one narrative here is fake. As we'll see, he has never visited the campus, and neither has his expert. So they have absolutely zero numerical data and are operating on complete hearsay. But note also, note on the second email, this paid agent of the billionaire is threatening a firm on the other side of the world with negative coverage unless they give him the fake quote he wants. This kind of thing just doesn't fly in Singapore. Remember, Lee Kuan Yew created one of the most based societies in the world where they execute drug dealers, cane criminals, and prosecute Western media corporations for defamation. So the Singaporean founder of the firm instead did a delightful video with me, which you will see below in a second, and we prepared a rebuttal to these moronic narrative together. Before we get there, though, let me establish one key point of context. First, tech fixes things. Oh, she is that. Tech fixes things and journalists destroy things. We can see this from Atlantic owner Dhruv Dakoria as her life's work involved destroying American cities. Oh no. Hmm. And we can also see this from Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg's career and his life's work involves foreign cities. Moreover, we can contrast what journalists do to what technologists do. Elon is the best of us, and his career is about going from scraps of rubble to the SpaceX chopsticks catch, from gas powered autos to electric cars, and from peer censorship to access freedom. In a small way, that's the goal with the Star Society is to fix things. That's why every class of recruits is send the following email which says declares frontier, not fancy. I want to talk about what to expect. The TLDR is that at school V1 is frontier, not fancy. It's a place to build on, a place to spend lots of money. I go into more detail on what to expect, but the main take home is that if you want to cancel, right here he said now is the time. We have 20,000 so applicants who can take your place, so don't feel guilty. Spider Seagull will take care of it. If you want to wait for next school V2 or V3, that's also fine. That is, we intentionally want people off who wanted luxury because we prize editability. Every single person who comes even signs a contract to us, like stating that they are well aware that we are building together is frontier or fancy because that's what a startup society is, just like a startup company or a startup currency. Every single thing will work on day one. Real estate development is like software development, taking over and mostly end-to-end land. Yes, it has a little bit of a fixer upper. That is the point, and that is what we enjoy doing. Tech fixes things, and that's what we did. We took over the property in late September 24 and heard there was multi in some rooms a few weeks later. We called specialists and went room by room to fix it and then install IoT maintenance equipment to make sure it stayed fixed. Shown is the before and after the absolute worst room, which was an abandoned service closet on the 12th floor of a multi-million square foot property. Anyone who has done real estate development will know that there are nooks and crannies of very large buildings that get gnarly. In any case, we were only taken over the property weeks before, and we quickly fixed it once we saw it. We turned around the property. So besides the point, here's a video with me and the vendor. Like, as mentioned, on fixing the issue 6 months ago, we instrumented every room across the property with air purifiers and dehumidifiers. That gives us a log of IoT measurements showing continuously high air quality. These multiple air quality monitors to record IoT data in each room and confirm continuous high air quality. Now that destroys most of our speaks narrative. In short, we heard about a maintenance issue a few weeks ago into occupying a property. We fixed it immediately after hearing about it. We fixed it many months ago. We added continuous air quality monitoring, and the vendor who literally maintains the facilities for Singapore's Ministry of Health and personally confirmed both on video and writing the property is fine. Oh, and we need to close rooms for cleaning, but in the same way that a restroom is temporarily closed for cleaning. There is only one last bit to take care of, which is at least invocation of a remote gear expert. We can take care of that with one image. Gear expert, only disgruntled member that we asked to leave. Yes, Lumia, one side investigation. Basically, the year expert was never on site, and he was never on site. The entire story is operating off complete hearsay rather than her data, and obviously, New Haven itself is absolutely filthy city. Heading to the Singapore Johor special economic zone, do you think they might fix their own homeless encampments first before planning on Southeast Asia? The crossing will staff. It's the emotional intelligence you need for business to thrive, psychology expert says. Everything you read makes sense if you simply translate experts as crazy people. And most importantly, the level of illogical conformity is why all the IQ has trained on academia and tech. An expert in 2025 is just much less capable on average than a VC backed biotech founder. Mm. In summary, try me. I mean, just the fact that this Felix would commented to this journal on something where he had literally zero sensor data is part of the reason academia has such reproducibility crisis. It's just people citing each other on vibes without ever collecting any raw data. Moreover, if Ali asks a Democrat professor whether even it's unsafe for people to be around or whether it's child castration and hormone treatments are unsafe and whether it was unsafe for Democrats to burn down black businesses during Vietnam riot, he'll get a totally different proved answer. In the words, da, da, da. No background molecular biology, unlike me, not observe anything in person, not observe anything in person. For us to leave, his sources were asked to leave months ago. He has no numbers or current on the ground data whatsoever. Meanwhile, you have the following assigned opinion from the firm that helps maintain Singapore's health of Ministry of Health's own facilities before and after photos and videos showing that we fixed the issues months ago. As soon as it was brought to our attention, the fact that mildly use a routine maintenance issue in the humid climate, similar to frozen pipes in Canada or sand in Dubai, the fact that I and team have skin in the game because we are here physically building a society we want to live in, which is as far away from democratic control as humanly possible. Of course, the hard instrumental record of air quality measurements from dehumidifiers and amplifiers, which is the same tool Elon used to knock down the NYT similar fake news story on Tesla's running out of charge. Intimidating a Singapore firm will not endear him to the local judiciary. Even though the oligarch said the Atlantic Union on its pay raises still there was labor unrest, it's obvious that she would go all out to defend a reckless minion from a Gawker's child judgment rather than simply firing him and replacing Ali with AI. Remember, Gawker's estate cut its short base and allowed him to just get personally bankrupted by a righteously angry thief. It was a cost for recklessly pursuing page views of cost, and the cost was 140 million judgment and personal bankruptcy. It's now been 10 years. 4 years of steel smashing victories. So to paraphrase Thomas Jefferson's the tree of liberty may need to be refreshed from time to time with tears of sureness. And then in network school, we want to remember we were repeatedly told to expect frontier, not fancy, by as Balaji standards that meant state-of-the-art gym, facilities, amazing hotel rooms with views, cleaned immaculately every day. World-class longevity food menu designed by Brian J. with audited supply chains I witnessed. Available all day, every day, better than I would eat in New York, Miami, or SF. Lowest co-working space fit for any founder's needs, Wi-Fi, office phones, hang-out spaces with a healing community built into it.